Hey, welcome! Today we're going to dive into something called the Capital Architecture Framework. Now, this is a system that's designed to bring some much-needed clarity to the, let's face it, pretty chaotic world of financial markets and hopefully help you make better decisions.
We have all been there, right? You see a chart, you read some analysis, and you think, okay, I've got this. But then you hear someone else looking at the exact same data saying the total opposite. It is one of the most maddening parts of investing.
And this just nails the problem, doesn't it? One investor sees a huge opportunity, a chance to grow their money. The other sees a massive risk, a threat that could just wipe them out. You've got the same facts but completely opposite takeaways. So how is that even possible?
Well, here's the key insight. The problem isn't a lack of information. We are absolutely drowning in data, in opinions, in news. The real issue, and what this framework argues, is that we don't have a solid structure for processing it all.
All right, so that brings us to the core idea here. We need to shift our thinking away from trying to predict the future and toward building a reliable process. To get any clarity, we've got to stop asking what's going to happen next and start building a system. Just look at the difference here. The old question, what will the market do next? That's a guessing game. It's totally reactive, and it's usually driven by emotion. But this better question, how should capital be evaluated within a system? Well, that's strategic. It changes the whole game. The market isn't a crystal ball anymore. It's a system that you can learn to navigate. And that's really the payoff, isn't it? As soon as you stop chasing every single headline and start applying a consistent framework, all that noise, it just starts to fade away, and a much clearer picture begins to emerge.
So, okay, how do we actually see the market as a whole system? Well, this framework says we have to start from the top down. We need to look at the biggest, most powerful forces first.
Now, what's so fascinating about this is the idea that under all that day-to-day chaos, money doesn't just move around randomly. It actually flows with a kind of logic through these predictable layers of influence. Think of it like water cascading down a mountain. It follows a path.
And here are those layers. We start at the very top with the big picture, global macro trends. What's happening in the world economy? That then filters down and tells us something about specific countries. That in turn influences different sectors within those countries. And only then, at the very end, do we start looking at an individual stock or security. See how each step sets the stage for the next one?
This is such a great example of why that top-down order is so important. You could find the absolute best company in its field, right? But if its entire industry is struggling, if the tide for that whole sector is going out, even the strongest swimmer is going to have a tough time making any headway. The influence of the bigger system is just massive.
Okay, so once you get the whole system view, the framework says every single decision needs to stand on 3 pillars. And if even one of them is weak or missing, the whole thing could just fall apart. Pillar number 1 is logic. This is your classic fundamental analysis. You have to ask, does this whole story just make sense? Is this a solid business? Is the economy helping it or hurting it? It's all about answering that one simple question. Why should this actually work?
Next up, timing. And this is so critical. A fantastic idea at the absolute wrong time is still a bad trade. This pillar uses things like charts and trends to see what the market itself is doing. Is the price action confirming your idea right now? Or is it screaming at you to wait? This is all about the when.
And finally, we have execution. This is where your good idea has to meet the real world. How much money are you going to put on the line? Crucially, where are you going to get out if you're wrong? This pillar is what turns a smart thought into a well-managed position. It's the how.
And this is where it all comes together. When these 3 pillars, logic, timing, and execution, are not lined up, when they're telling you different things, the framework gives you a very clear, simple answer. Do nothing. Patience isn't just a virtue here. It's a strategic move. A misalignment is the market's way of telling you that the odds just aren't in your favor yet.
Now, to use a framework like this, you need more than just a new checklist. You really need a new mindset. It's about making a fundamental shift, away from being an emotional speculator and towards being a disciplined scientist.
And this is exactly what that scientific approach looks like in the real world. You start with an idea, a hypothesis. Then you test that idea against the layers and pillars of your framework. You only pull the trigger when the evidence lines up. And then, and this is so important, you review what happened, win or lose, so you can refine your process for the next time.
And you know, the biggest payoff of thinking this way is that it acts like a filter for your own emotions. All that fear, that greed, that FOMO,
It just has less power over you when you're focused on following the steps of a logical process.
So, as we start to wrap this up, it really all comes back to this one central idea. The goal is not to be some perfect fortune teller. The real goal is to build a solid, repeatable process that you can rely on for the long haul.
This slide really lays out the fundamental choice every single one of us has to make. Are you going to be a speculator, just reacting to things, relying on emotion and pure guesswork? Or are you going to be an architect, building your decisions with a clear process, with discipline? This framework is really the blueprint to help you make that switch.
And this is the ultimate takeaway. Real, lasting success in the markets, it hardly ever comes from some heroic one-time prediction. It comes from having a solid structure, having the discipline to stick to it, and having a process you can trust day in and day out.
So the final question I want to leave you with is this. Right now, are you just reacting to the market's every move? Or are you actively building a framework to help you navigate it? Because honestly, the answer to that question could change everything.